Hey, Resonate. There are a lot of discussions in reopening the state of California, whether it's malls or restaurants or gyms or other public spaces. And I want to briefly share how we, the elders, are processing all of this as we navigate current tensions we have regarding our physical gatherings as a church. Now, one of the tensions that we're trying to hold together is the goodness in gathering. As the people of God, we're called to gather together, to spend time together, and to love one another, to care for each other. And bodily presence is really important, isn't it? In fact, for human thriving, physical presence is necessary for our emotional, spiritual, and physical health. So a desire to gather together is good when it's wise and safe. But on the other side of the tension is our commitment to love. We are called as followers of Jesus to love God and to love our neighbors as ourselves. And we see that we have a unique opportunity right now to show love for our neighbors and our city in really significant ways. As we listen to health professionals, state and local leaders, we're being asked to follow guidelines to protect the well-being of our community at large. In fact, we're often called as followers of Jesus to sacrifice personal freedoms for the sake of loving others. So we think listening and respecting those guidelines is a way of loving our city well. And we don't see this guideline as a freedom of religion issue. Nobody's telling us that we can't worship God. And so as we've been thinking about how we're going to move forward as a church, we're trying to prioritize love along with our desire to gather together. So as we navigate this, I realize there are a lot of different opinions out there, even in our own church family. And therefore, I want to ask you, I want to encourage you to consider the love of God as we approach these topics. That in His kingdom, we're called to be a community of people with different opinions and perspectives who continue to love each other, care for one another, to show humility towards one another, to learn from each other, to the extent that we can't even appreciate different perspectives. And when we walk in unity and in love, man, it is a powerful and a beautiful thing. It's otherworldly, and the world is watching us. After all, it glorifies God. And so I would encourage you to not be tempted by divisive rhetoric, but to move towards being united in love and grace, as we always have, because Christ has abundantly loved and graced us. So the question is, what does that mean for our Sundays? Well, it seems like in this next phase, there are some opportunities opening up for small gatherings called social bubbles. That opens up possibilities for MCs to gather, amp gatherings, and even watch parties to take place. However, as for our worship gatherings on Sundays, we're going to be governed by three questions. Is it practical? Is it good? And is it loving? First, is it practical? As long as we are being asked to maintain 6 feet of social distancing, it doesn't really make sense to gather together at our buildings on Sunday morning. On a typical Sunday, we have a couple thousand people attending before shelter in place. And so to facilitate that amount of people with physical distancing would cause us to have about 12 to 15 services. And that's just not practical on every level, isn't it? Secondly, is it good? Now, with social distancing required, with no Redskin programming on the premise. Why? Because kids can't socially distance, and they just like to lick doorknobs. And because face covering is mandated currently in our county, which means muffled or no singing at all, what you imagine our worship experience to be in the building will not be nearly as good as the experience that we get at home. Now, I have a friend who pastors a church in Oklahoma with a similar sized church as us. He was so eager to get together, so they did so a few weeks ago with 10 smaller gathering services. And the result of their worship experience was so bad, with children running around with no singing because of the mandated masks and people sparsely scattered in the big auditorium. The very next week, they decided to go back to the worship online again because the experience was so terrible. Now, as you know, Resonate has always had such amazing worship experience, and our staff and our serve staff team have done such a tremendous job in creating an excellent online experience that I'm so proud of. So until our physical gatherings can be better than our online experience, it's probably wise to hold off until the dust settles some. Now lastly, is it loving? We are a church for the city, which means we're committed to loving our city well. As many of you know and already know, cases of coronavirus in Alameda County is on the rise. In fact, CDC, along with other leading experts who are way smarter than me, are saying that the darkest days are ahead of us still. Additionally, experts have said that churches, along with bars and sports stadiums, have some of the highest risks for the virus. You might have heard, but a church in Oregon held services recently, and many got the coronavirus there. And subsequently, and unfortunately, they had a huge fallout with the city because of it. And we don't want to dim our testimony as we're trying to be the beacon of light in Fremont, in Hayward, and the Bay Area. So not gathering on Sundays, as good as it would be, so good to be together, for now, we're going to consider that a loss for us. There's so much power in gathering together. I love it, and I desperately miss it, and I hope you do too. But in the meantime, let's not sit idle. Let's be the church that is scattered. As things normalize, though, let's continue to cultivate a deeper community. And I would encourage you to find ways to continue to serve your neighbors. You can host small watch parties in your home. We have a ton that's going on here at Resonate in the summer. We have newly formed Bible studies online. We're still very active in the street ministry. Student ministries will be gathering soon in small groups, along with launching our Turn It Up Home Edition to minister to some of the most underprivileged students in our city. Now you can find all this and more information on our website. We don't know how long this will last, and I know it's hard because we all want to know. But I know things could turn quickly for the better, so we'll continue to monitor the situation weekly. But until then, we're committed here in providing the most excellent programming for your kids while providing you a great worship experience online. And perhaps sooner than later, we can physically gather together under one roof, to be together, to love one another, to hug each other, to worship the Lord together. Know that I feel deeply blessed to be one of your pastors. I love you more than you'll ever know. Please, please, please reach out to us if there's anything that we can do for you. We're here to serve you. God bless.